clearly you oppose Theresa May's deal for Brexit and are opposing it loud and clear. Would you admit that that tactic increases the possibility of a no-deal hard Brexit, and is that a risk you're happy to take?
Well, I don't think it increases the possibility of a no-deal hard Brexit. I mean, that possibility is there all the time. And in any deal, you have to be able and willing to walk away if the deal's not good enough. So to sort of give in to that fear is to say any deal will do, thank you very much. What's being proposed by the Prime Minister, and it appears agreed with the European Union, is a deal that has really taken away all the possible economic benefits of Brexit. The idea was that once we'd left the European Union, we could control our own laws and regulations and businesses. We could do deals with the United States. I mean, one of the things I'm talking to people about here is the possibility of future free trade deals. All of that will be off the table if we accept this deal. And frankly, that's not tolerable. It's worth taking a small risk, a small but manageable risk of no deal in order to achieve a better deal. And I'm sure we can do that.
And you mentioned, of course, you've been having meetings in Washington today. So what changes would you like to make to the deal? Is there time left to do that, given that, of course, you had 2 years as Brexit Secretary to strike the deal that you want? So what deal have you come up with in the short space of time left?
It's pretty much the same deal that I wanted the Prime Minister to pursue in March and June, when we ended up differing on the strategy. And that is a free trade deal, rather like the one the European Union struck with Canada a year or so ago, but improved with other precedents that they've used. They've done a deal with South Korea, which has got good arrangements for the motor industry. They've done a deal with New Zealand, which has got good agricultural arrangements. So we could take the precedents of all those deals and present those to the European Union. On their side, I mean, that's good for them because it protects their industries just as much as ours, protects more in fact. But also it allows us to give them the 39 billion that they need to make their books balance. So there are a lot of reasons for them to agree to this. But the last thing I'd say in terms of time, I've said since the beginning, I actually was saying 2 years ago, the time that matters in this negotiation is the last few months. It's always been with the European Union, they hold off and hold off and hold off and only really start negotiating properly in the last few months as the clock ticks out. Very often, European deals are done in the last day, the last hour, even in the last minute of the time available, and I expect that to happen here too.
Well, the risks of no deal will certainly rise significantly if you wait till the last minute. You outlined some of the deals the EU's already made, of course, and the benefits of some of the individual deals. Of course, no deal exists that contains all of those individual benefits. And if we dive in on the Canada deal that you and some of your friends mentioned most of all, yes, it has free trade in goods, albeit less than for the customs union because there's still border checks, but it doesn't include free trade in services. And the UK is a service economy, close to 80% of GDP in services, and it doesn't include passporting of financial rights. So can you say that you can get the Canada deal and throw in those passporting of financial rights?
Well, services, I mean, there isn't a single market in services in the European Union. This is one of the illusions that people have outside the Union. The single market is essentially in goods. And as you referred to passporting, this is for various financial services. There are about 9 different classes of passport. They've only existed since 2006, 7, 8. They're quite new. They're not fundamental to the success of the City of London, and there are workarounds. But I would like to see us get a more progressive service deal with the European Union. But frankly, we haven't had a particularly good service deal for the last 40 years, so I wouldn't hold my breath on that. And the City of London will have control of its own destiny, its own regulations, and that's a huge competitive advantage for it anyway in dealing with the rest of the world, which is the biggest part of its marketplace anyway. So this is
Davis,
not yeah, go on.
With respect, I mean, RBS shares fell 13% this week, Lloyd's fell 9%, Barclays fell 6%. Barclays, the least volatile of those, is down 25% since its peak in March this year. They're all down sharply since their pre-Brexit one-year average. They're all down since the result of the 2017 election. They're all down over the last 12 months. So the market is very much disagreeing with your tone on financial services.
Well, the market doesn't know the end result yet. I mean, with the greatest of respect, we don't make our policies off the back of 1 or 2 day movements in the market, no matter how big.
Well, it's not 1 or 2 days at all. It's pretty much every time frame that you could address in relation to Brexit.
No, but even so, they don't know what the outcome will be yet. As it is, to throw away the opportunities of what is 60% of our trade already, the rest of the world, and actually at least that percentage of the city's trade is on the basis of the presumption of a few set of stockbrokers that this is going to go badly for them is ridiculous. The simple truth is the Bank of England has got a very good worked up model for how we deal with the European Union. That hasn't even been aired yet. That hasn't even been tried yet. And when I talk to the leaders of banks in the city, 2 years ago, they were all very, very, very nervous about this. They wanted to basically concede the case and accept the European rules. Now, most of them say to me, actually, we don't want to be rule takers. We want to decide our own rules because that gives us a big competitive advantage in the rest of the world. And the other thing which we just put to one side on this, people have put to one side on this, is the question of financial stability and propriety. London is one of the best places in the world to do business in the financial sector. It's also one of the safest. And we are the ones, not the European Union, we are the ones who make it that way. Indeed, left to our own devices, we've made it even safer with capital ratios and so on. So I don't really think that the movement of a couple of retail banks, frankly, are what we should worry about here.
Well, the CEOs of the major US investment banks do strike a similar tone of worry. Nonetheless, let's move on. My final question, because we're running out of time, Mr. Davis, is clearly there's talk of a potential vote of confidence in Prime Minister Theresa May. Do you want that vote of confidence to happen? Does she need to go for you to be able to pursue what you want on Brexit? And would you put your name into the hat to be the next Prime Minister?
Well, normally we don't comment on our leaders when we're abroad any more than American politicians comment on their president when they're abroad. But let me say this: for the last 3 months, I've maintained a campaign on what the alternative ought to be for our country. That's focused on the policy, not the person. The Prime Minister is a very good Prime Minister. She's good at running the country. It's just on this issue we have a very, very strong disagreement. What's more likely to happen than a confidence vote, what's much more likely to happen is this deal will be rejected by the House of Commons. That's possibly one of the reasons you're seeing those market movements. It will be rejected by the House of Commons, in my view. There's no way I can see it getting through. And therefore, she'll have to come up with another alternative. We've put a number of very, very good alternatives to her, which will actually improve our relationship with the United States, allow us to do those free trade deals, but also with all our other allies and friends around the world, and actually will work out better for our relationship with Europe in the long term too. So that's what she should do. That's what will keep the government on the straight and narrow, and that's what I'm hoping for.